Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhaj.
Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhaj. Thanks for tuning in again this week to Authentic Living with Roxanne. Today I have a special guest, and Robert is, I'm going to say, once an athlete, always an athlete. Do you have that mindset once you're there?
Yep.
So he is an athlete. I'll tell you a little bit about his background, and we're going to talk a little bit about, I talk a lot about resilience, and I often say that myself, I was not the type growing up that was into sports, but I was into different things. And the mind of an athlete, I think, is also always very, very fascinating. So he's an All-American athlete, and he had a pretty big knee injury that almost took him out of the game. And he went on to deal with that and become the USA track and field Masters track champion. And after that, he kind of channeled that energy into doing what he does now, which is working with a lot of people to break through barriers. So thanks so much, Robert, for being on and taking your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about a little bit about you. I love to find out a little bit about, the story behind the guests and kind of, what got you involved in sports. Like, I think like with every little boy, I have a son, and, he got involved in, I'm Canadian, so he gets involved in hockey. In your history growing up, what was your exposure to sports like?
I can answer that in one sentence. I'm the youngest of 7 children.
Oh my goodness! So you're the baby then, the special
one. Baby, yes. And they were all athletes, including my parents.
Wow!
So it was just kind of in the blood. But just being the baby, I was constantly somebody else's little brother, and that drove me insane. So that's where, I kind of had that little chip on my shoulder, just trying to be recognized for being Robert Foster. I was always Ramona's little brother, your Monique's little brother, your Ralph's little brother. And I hated it. Like, I just wanted to carve my own identity. So I went to work, and it was the best feeling when someone was like, "Oh, you're Rob Foster." It's like, thank God.
Goal accomplished, right?
Yes.
So were you short distance, long distance? What kind of running did you do?
I was a sprinter and a jumper.
Sprinter and jumper. High jumper?
Yes. High jump, triple jump, long jump.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I did them all.
Wow. Pretty amazing.
Thank you.
So you got involved. You were finding, what I often say is, I was actually writing a piece that's going to be going out in my book that's coming in April around that all of us have to want to find that uniqueness. And I talk about myself as well in this particular part of the book about recognition, right? We all want to find that unique identity. I, like you, came from a family of 6, and I was kind of like in the middle. I wasn't I wasn't the golden child, and I wasn't the baby. And I was just somewhere in the middle, trying to kind of shuttle with my brother, who was the only boy, who made him special. And then me, right? So I came up with I think I can talk to people and I can mediate situations, and I found that skill. And I would say that most of us really, really early try to find that uniqueness, not unlike what you're saying that you did as being the baby of 7.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
So it's with sports, right? Like, I know this. My son is actually at a level of professional golf now, and
nice.
There's a certain kind of, I would say, core principles that go with being an athlete. So tell me what they are in reference to core resiliency. What did you kind of learn about being as good as you were at the level you were, and what did you apply routinely to get better?
Yeah, so when it first starts, if you just take people who have never been an athlete before, they're working, most people, for money. So they're working their job, they put in their 40 hours to get a paycheck. When you're an athlete, it's performance. And when you're an elite athlete, it's a complete lifestyle. Because there's a big difference between someone who plays basketball and someone who's, trying to become a collegiate or professional athlete. It's just a different level of discipline. And it's just a different level of care. And it's just a different level of want. So when you're in that level, you're going to push yourself harder. You're going to eat better. You're going to be more focused. You're going to spend money on the right gear. So like it's all in the mind. I know mindset is overplayed and overused, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. So when you're an athlete, you're focused. And with my fitness clients, my best clients are people who were former athletes, because once you have it, it's always in there. And I always say it's so much easier to pull badass out of someone than it is to try to stuff it in someone that never had it.
Pull it out versus push it in. So I think of myself, right? Like over the years, obviously I do work out, but I don't I remember when my son, he played hockey. He started, at 7 playing hockey, and then he played travel like we do. And then he moved to golf. Right.
Yes.
And I remember him, I got to the point where I'm like, of course I'm mom and I'm, the psychologist, and I'm trying to talk about work-life, balance and all of that. And he looked at me one day and he said, "Mom, you're not going to get it." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I have to become the master of one thing." And he's like 14 years old now, right? Yep. So I'm talking about, you should hang out with your friends. And, and he goes, "No, Mom." He says, "Every split second I get, I want to be out there because I'm driven and I know where I want to be." So, for him, he was teaching me something because on the level that he was trying to explore. So I'm going to assume, what were your parents like? Like what guidance did they give you about developing this mindset? Like you said, as overused as it is, it's a mindset or a state that you go into. And I'm going to assume did you start running quite young?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I played, and it wasn't even just track. I played pretty much everything out there: basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer. I played it all. So in our household, sports was pretty much mandatory. Now, my father, he ran track too back in the day, and he ended up he had a good shot at being on, I believe it was the '64 U.S. Olympic team for the 400-meter hurdles, but he was in the Marines and Vietnam broke out, so he ended up going off to war. But he always pushed us. I think it was just a combination of his own drive with that military background, that he just didn't let us settle for average. He's like, you can just roll out of bed and be average. So he's like, if you're gonna take the time to go to practice and train, you got to get the most out of it. And your body will do whatever you train it to do. So he said, you get out there and you train. If you want to play basketball, you got to practice shooting, you got to practice running, you got to practice jumping. And he's like, you don't just go to your practice and say that you're done. It's like, it's what you do before practice, it's what you do after practice. And then that's how you're going to become a champion. And all of us won championships in something, like all 7 of us.
So it was something that he ingrained in you quite early. Yeah. So I want you to take me back to do you remember the very first, one of your most significant first wins?
I do.
Tell me about that, and tell me what, that space was for you when you actually, obviously, it takes a lot of work to get to that level that you got to, but what was that like when you got that first kind of taste of winning at that level?
See, and this isn't even going to be what you're thinking, but this is the first one. So I was in 2nd grade. I believe that 7 years old. It was an apple bob contest, right? It was an apple bob contest. So it was field day at our school, and my friend was up in front of me and just telling me he was going to win. I had no chance. I shouldn't even go up there. And I was like, dude, I come from a long line of athletes. It's like, we're constantly challenging and pushing each other. He's like, doesn't matter. You have no chance. So it's his turn to go. And he goes, into his credit, he got down and up in 5 seconds. So I was like, okay, that's solid, but I got this. And so the teacher calls my name. I walk over to that bucket. I'm pulling up the sleeves, up here in Rhode Island. It gets chilly all the time. Gotta pull up the sleeves. And I put my hands on that bucket. I looked down. I scanned and I found my target. There was one right by the corner. I said, I'm going to take it straight down, pin it to the bottom, and then I should be able to come up in under 5 seconds. And so the teacher's like, ready, set, go. And I dug right in there, soaked myself, got it up 2.2 seconds. And
wow,
such a rush. It was just the feeling of winning was such a rush that it actually helped propel everything else. It's like people chuckle when I tell that story. They're like, an apple bomb contest. I'm like, but you don't get it. It's like just that feeling of being doubted and then coming through.
Yeah.
It just laid the foundation that no matter what else I do, no matter what obstacles people try to put in my place, I'm going to bust through it.
Mm-hmm. So your major injury was before you went on to win the track championship, was it? Was it as you were training?
No, it was actually during a track meet. I was 34 years old. So now let's backtrack. In 1992, I injured it the first time training. I was actually trying to qualify for the 92 Olympic trials and the triple jump. And I ended up just overextending. I landed weird and something popped. So now that was in 1992. So this injury happened, I was 34. So this is 16 years later. So it was just all those meets in between and playing basketball and everything else just was wearing it down, I guess. So I'm in this track meet now and I have my age bracket one because like I believe it's once you're 25 and over, you just go into different age brackets. So I had my age bracket 1, 30 to 34, but there was a 45-year-old still jumping. Mm. And the way my competitive spirit is set up, I couldn't just let that go. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take one more jump. So I go, I jump, I miss it, but I felt like a tug in my left knee. And so the other gentleman, he missed it as well. So I was like, all right, so he missed too. So let me do one more. If I nail this one, because I don't think he can make this height. This was in the high jump. So I don't think he can make this height. So I went to my now ex. I was like, give me the tape. I was like, let me tape it because I felt something weird to give it some more support. Let me take this one last jump. Then I'll get my medals and we'll get out of here. And so I'm up in there. The wind had stopped. So it was like, because the wind can greatly affect your high jump. So the wind stopped. The sun's shining down. I'm feeling good. Take that big breath and I go, and then I saw white, like legit saw white. I was on the ground and I looked down and my kneecap was a quarter of the way up my quad. Yeah, so my patella tendon and whatever else was holding it completely gave way. And so I'm on the ground. It went instantly numb. So thank God I didn't feel that because I probably would have went into shock. But I had my hands over my knees and the athletic trainer comes running over. And I was like, my girl's called 911 already. She's like, I don't know if you're going to need an ambulance. And then I moved my hands and she saw my knee and she was like, oh my. She's like, oh my. I was like, yeah. And so my next question after that was, how do I get my medals? That was all I cared about because at the end of the day, I still won the event for my bracket. But anyways, but where everything changed now was in the emergency room. So the EMTs had put a brace on my knee and I get into the emergency room. The ER doctor comes in, he takes my brace off and within half a second, he's like, ooh, you're never going to run or jump again.
Wow.
And now I had just started my fitness business earlier that year. Like I just started. I just had twin boys who were born. They were 4 and 5 at the time. They were 4 months at the time. Kids number 4 and 5. And so I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, never run a jump. And so like I start crying. I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to run with my kids or run with my clients. It's like, how am I gonna do this? And then at that moment, I stopped, wiped up the tears. I looked at the doctor, and I'll keep it PG, but I looked at the doctor and I said, you don't effing know me like that. I was like, you might know medicine. I said, but you don't know me. I was like, you don't know what I'm willing to go through to get this back. I said, and it's not even to prove you wrong. So I could care less about your opinion. It's the fact that I need this joint to work for me to get to where I need to go. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, you know, these things, I said, don't even finish the sentence. I was like, I don't care how these things for the average person, like, you're not talking to an average person. I was like, I'm going to get through this.
So let's talk about that tenaciousness, right? Because that's that fire in the belly, right? You're
Yes.
kind of like, you're not keeping me down. You may have gone to all that med school stuff, but you're not gonna tell me what I'm capable of. And you know, when any of us are injured, right, and we're forced not to move, there's a mental set that we go into. So you must have, as much as you know, I'm going to do this, there must have been things that you fought off.
Oh, yeah.
Naturally, to be able to kind of, you know, we know the body and the mind is one, right? Even though in the West, we always kind of separate those two out. Mm-hmm. What kind of things did you do to really enhance or even not even enhance, but just allow the process to occur so that your body could kind of get back to the level that it needed to go on?
When I tell anyone going through anything, whether it's fitness, whether it's injury, whether it's a struggling business, no matter what it is you have to celebrate every single win. And don't worry about the stuff you don't have yet or the stuff you can't do yet. Mm-hmm. So at the time when I was in a wheelchair, I'd still be outside with the kids playing basketball. I'd be wheeling myself around, grabbing the ball, shooting. Like, I can still shoot. Like, you know, my leg's broken, but my arm still works just fine. I was still going to the gym on crutches, hopping around between machines, doing what I can do. It's like if one area is hurting, then you have to intensify the other areas to make up for it. Because if you only focus on the one area that's hurting, it's going to completely derail you. It's going to demoralize you. It's going to depress you. You're going to end up gaining weight. You're going to lose energy, and you're just going to lose that hunger. Mm-hmm. So for me, I just celebrated every last thing. It's like, hey, I walked 3 steps without falling. Yes. You know? Hey, I walked all the way to the bathroom. You know, texting the wife. Hey, I walked all the way to the bathroom today. No crutches. Right. I just made everything amazing. Mm-hmm. And I just think when you keep that positive attitude and you keep that energy high, it seriously, I mean, I'm no doctor by any means. I dropped out of college 3 times, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel it helps the healing process, just being positive like that and just surrounding yourself with awesome experiences.
Oh, absolutely. And because, you know, we have nerve centers throughout our body, right? And your body remembers, like, you know, there's a famous book that's, you know, based on some of the training that I did in trauma, and it talks about the body keeps a score.
Yes.
Right. So the body is keeping all emotion, if you think about it, and it's constantly feeding it back up. So we have nerve cells in our tummies, more nerve cells in our tummies than we do in our brain. Yeah. So if you kind of think about it, and if that message is going back and forth all the time, to your point, you're actually you're saying, okay, move over, injury. I'm going to jump into the driver's seat, even though I know I have to do this work, because again, like, we have like 60,000 thoughts in a day, about approximate. Yeah. And a lot of them can be negative. So if anybody says, you know, oh yeah, no, I think positively all the time, I often say, they're telling you a lot of fibs, right? It's about what you do to channel that. And that sounds like what you did. You looked at what you had control over, and incrementally, gratitude, I'm going to assume, was part of that. If you could kind of wheel around with your kids and be able to still do some things, but just being gracious for what you have versus the focus on what you don't have, which was the fact that you're in a wheelchair and you're a runner.
Yeah.
Yes. If that's not going to derail you, I'm not sure what wouldn't, kind of thing.
Yeah. And even with the fitness business, like, I would show up down to the field, I'd drive the van, I'd have my wheelchair in the back of it. My clients would come, they'd get the wheelchair, they would open it for me, they would help me out of the van, they would help me into the wheelchair, they would push me over to the part in the playground where we were going to be training. And, you know, I'd have my clipboard and I'm barking orders, and, you know, people are walking in the park, like, looking at me, my leg all up in a wheelchair, like, you know, this guy's in charge over here. But, you know, it's all about how you show up. If you show up positively and powerfully, great things can happen. So the fact that at that time I was only 1 week post-surgery and I was already back out there. Yeah, I was already back out there because I told myself, you can do this, right? When you tell yourself you can do this, you can do it. If you tell yourself you can't do it, you're right there too. So I just keep it positive all the time.
So let's talk rituals, because I'm going to assume, just from what you're saying, and I know what I teach and what I speak about, and rituals are such a big part of it. So tell me, when you now, in your business and when you're speaking or when you're coaching, I'm going to assume you teach a lot about rituals. So tell me what you teach as a frame, because Robert, if we think about the time we're in, the biggest thing that I'm dealing with is the challenges, because most people are trying really, really hard, but it's almost like we have, this, the world's on a tilt, right? And everybody's trying to gain control, but, we do it some days and you don't do it some days, and people are trying their best. So what kind of things do you talk about and teach people about resilience?
It starts with the clarity of the vision. It's like most people will say it starts with the why. Like the why is in there, but and this is my own two cents, is it has to start with the clarity of vision. So when I started my gym, so now this was actually a year and a half prior to me ever thinking about having a standalone location. I took out my trusty notebook and I just sketched what I wanted my gym to look like. Now, it was a ghetto looking sketch because I don't draw, but I did the best I could. I was like, I knew I wanted a smaller room up front, something that wasn't too intimidating. Like, I don't want people to walk in the door and be like, oh, wow, and see all this obstacle stuff. I wanted it to be welcoming, inviting, and inspiring. So then I wanted it to open up into a bigger room where we would have the equipment and the ropes hanging and the climbing walls and the kettlebells and all that stuff. But that was after they were nice and comfortable. So I wanted an office over here on this side. I want a storage room here and, bathrooms over here. And so we fast forward a year and a half now. I had bad credit. I had no savings. And I told you I dropped out of college. So it's like, I don't have a degree. So it's like, how am I going to do this? I said, what I'm going to do, like I was talking with my parents, I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep changing people's lives. And then at some point, a door is going to open. And so that was all I focused on, was just getting my clients results, getting them out of their bad habits, helping them get off of blood pressure meds, helping them fix their cholesterol, reversing type 2 diabetes. Like, I just focused on that. And then one day after a busy class, one of my clients approached me and was like, why don't you have your own place? He's like, you have such a strong following. And then, so long story short, he and one of his partners, they invested in me to open up a 5,000 square foot facility. So now, as we're scouting around locations, we walked into this one. And when we walked in, this place was a dump. It was an absolute dump. It was smelly. It was like a mildew-filled carpet, or holes all over the wall. It was dirty in the main room. And I walked in and said, this is perfect. And they looked at me like, what? They're like, this place is perfect? I was like, you don't understand. What I sketched down about a year and a half ago, this is it. And it was so scary. The only difference was this one had an extra storage room that I didn't have written down, and it had an upstairs, which I didn't have written down. But the main layout was to a T to what I had written down. And so that clarity of vision helped us turn that dirty old warehouse into an award-winning facility. Like,
amazing. So the capacity of visualization, right? Like, yes. Like not to trivialize what you just said, but in your brain, even though I'm sure the other people you're with were thinking, what is he seeing? Because you had that mental set. And to your point, right? If the average person walks into a gym, I remember when I used to go to the gym, like way back, and you walk and you see the big guys, you're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to move over there. Look at what they're lifting. I'm going, and then you because you're like, whoa, okay. So that whole concept of being inviting, and I don't want to see a 20-pound kettlebell as soon as I'm hitting the front. I might want to see a 10, maybe a 5, but that whole approach of I want people to come in. I want them to kind of get their feet wet. I want them to think, okay, it's a gym. Okay. And then feel welcomed. And then they go into the back room and then they can see, oh, okay, well, I can do this. So you had that vision. And I think what happens to a lot of people is they, like to your point, you didn't focus on what you didn't have, right? You didn't focus on, I had this injury, or, I don't have the money, I don't have the degree, all that stuff, which is a lot of times what people tell themselves, but they don't stop to think, obviously you're passionate about, what you do, and you make a change in people's lives. And that's where you went from, like you said, one person at a time. You made the difference. People come in potentially overweight, not feeling good, no energy, high cholesterol, all that stuff. And you just kept focus on small goals with them over and over again. And of course, once people start to move and they start to shift things, then guess what? They go back to the doc and the doc goes, what have you been doing? They're doing lots of little things, often consistent. And then they start to see the change. And that's where you just kind of hung out and did that a bit at a time with everybody over and over again.
Yes. Yeah. And, piggybacking on that, it's not just the ability to see it, is you have to be able to feel it. Like when I sketched it down, like I pictured myself walking into the doors and seeing what I had laid out. Because like some people can say, I want to make $1 million, but they can't see themselves living in the home of their dreams, driving the car of their dreams, having their kids in the school of their dreams, and taking the vacation of their dreams. Like they don't take it that deep. And so I always say,
how do you take it deep? Let's talk about that. Because, like a lot of people, you're right, and, the self-help people say, just kind of put it out there. No, you have to do a lot more other than you have to feel it.
Yes.
And experience it. So tell me how you do that. I know what I do, but I'm curious to what you do.
Yeah. I mean, inside, well, there's different ways. So it depends what I'm dealing with. So on dealing with fitness, I work with mostly women. So with women, a lot of it is, they have that one little dress in their closet that they haven't worn in a decade that they want to put it back on. And I just walk them through that process. Like, what would that mean to you? Like, picture it. Where would you wear that dress? It's like, you have to ask the right questions. And so when you're doing it for yourself, a lot of people struggle with that, but that's where coaches like us come into play. And we help people through that process. So my process is 7 steps. And so now this used to be called years ago, Shut Up and Exercise, but I wanted to take it wider. Right, I want to take it wider. So I switched it to Shut Up and Grind, because it doesn't matter what you're working on. Said whether you're an athlete, whether you own a hair salon or a bowling alley, like it doesn't matter. Like all the principles are exactly the same. What do you want? What will it do for you if you get it? Why do you want it? How will you benefit the community if you get it? What will the legacy be for your family? Are you solving problems, or are you just providing, selling products? And like, you just have to ask the right questions and get down to the heart of what is in their passion, what's in their heart. And because like, once you get that deep, that person will go far. People who are content are going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So I don't even mess with people who are content. So like, you have to work with the people who are fed up and they're ready to change. Those people will be receptive to the coaching. The people who are content, I'm not going to say all of them, because you can't pigeonhole everyone, but a majority of people who are like, I'm okay where I am. So, well, I'm not the right coach for you then.
So through this time, and how have you shifted things with your business, like with the speaking? I know with speaking, the in-person, I'm not doing as much. I'm doing more virtual speaking and training, coaching. How have you shifted, and how the gym is physically still in Rhode Island, right? How have you had to pivot? And are you, here in, I'm close to Toronto I'm in Niagara Falls, which is about an hour from Toronto. We're in a complete lockdown. Are you open still, or are you in lockdown like us?
Well, we were shut down again, November 30th to December 20th. So we were allowed to open December 21st, just with restrictions, of course. So yes, we are open now, but overall, I mean, I'm down like 60% in volume, I want to say. So it has been tough, but like I said, I don't worry about what I can't do or what I can't have. So in that time, I had actually taken my classes outdoors. This is back in back in March, before the governor mandated it, because I knew it was coming. I was just watching what was happening elsewhere. Like, so let's just stay ahead of the curve and start adapting to it now.
Mhm.
So I did that, but then that gave me the green light to go ahead and start the podcast, because I had 8 live gigs booked between March and May. And then obviously they all got canceled. And I had this nice microphone I bought like a year and a half ago, just sitting here collecting dust and the lights and the green screen. I had it all. And then I was that creature that was content. So it's like I'm busy with the gym. The gym is growing. The speaking gigs are coming. So, but now with those taken away, I was like, you know what? Let's get the podcast up and going, and let's start, working on getting. I joined two masterminds. One about getting on TV, and one about doing Facebook ads, because now I can help other businesses with their marketing by, teaching them how to do Facebook ads and social media marketing and personal branding and all that good stuff. So like I took myself from just being, I don't want to say just, but being a gym owner and a speaker into now being a full-blown international business coach.
Amazing. So who are your mentors? Like, it sounds like your dad was an athlete. Was he one of your, or who were the mentors in your life, or who are the people that mentor you now? Kind of, whether it's kind of you think about them, or you do have mentors now that you follow.
Yeah, I mean, I do have some now, but I know this is gonna sound cliche, but I try to learn from everyone. There's so many people on this planet, and as knowledgeable as I am, I know I don't know everything. I just know there are things you have swirling around in your brain I've probably never thought of. So I just try to take bits and pieces from as many people as I can. But obviously it starts in the household. But definitely starts in the household. If your parents are pushing you, you're gonna grow up with more drive. If you're in a household where both parents are working full time, and you're bouncing around from daycares, chances are you're not gonna get the same structure. And again, I'm saying chances are. I'm not pigeonholing everyone, but so it starts there. But then from there comes a time where you have to step into your power. Right, you have to step into your power. And as an example, I was speaking with a young woman who just recently graduated from college with an exercise physiology degree. And so I said to her, I said, so what are you going to do with it? She's like, well, I have to get experience now. I'm like, you have a degree. I said, right now, this moment, you are an expert. Everyone that doesn't have one. I said, so why are you gonna let people stuff you into a box and tell you what you need to do before you can make it? I said, right now, with the power of the internet, you can start a YouTube channel or a TikTok channel or whatever and start sharing your knowledge. Your knowledge is valuable. Right. And then, yes, I'm sure you're going to want to work with patients and clients at some point. I said, but step into your power now. It's like you don't want to shrink yourself. And so many people fall into that trap.
And even more so in this time, right? With all the negativity, you gotta shut it off. I know with you guys in the US, you're going into, quite the week. You gotta take it in, but you gotta, not worry about it too much. I often say limit the amount of, some social, not a lot of news. Just find out what's going out. What do you need to know? Because really, that's a lot of it's negative coming at you, and then this is your capital up here. You gotta really protect it at all costs. Agreed. Now for anyone listening that's, they're like, oh, this sounds all well and good, Roxanne, but I'm having a tough time. Robert, what would be some first small steps you would say, whether it's a woman wanting to get in shape, which I know you work a lot with, or like you said, somebody coming out of college that, is like, well, there's no, we're in a pandemic. Did you not know? And how am I going to start anything? Or, well, I had to pivot because my business is down by 50%, which is what most businesses are down by overall. What would you say? What kind of tips would you give them to at least get going right now?
Yeah, the average person spends about 4 hours per day on social media. 4 hours per day. Take that time and put yourself out there. Like, no matter what field you're in, no matter what industry you're in, you are filled with so much power that you don't even know exists. Right? So I started a program this year also called Speak About Yourself Out Loud. Because as I joined these multiple masterminds, and you're in all these Facebook groups, and you start hearing people say, "Hey, so and so, introduce yourself." They're like, "Hi, I and Mary, and I am from," and it's like, you have to be able to speak about you. People can speak about movies. They can speak about how their girlfriend's crazy. They can speak about so many different things, about the great bar or the football game. But it's like, what do you want to do? So I help people take their own personal experiences and start things like blogs, become writers, speakers, podcasts, if they want to write a book. There's just so many different things that people can do with their own experience. But the problem is that people think, oh, nobody wants to hear from me. Like, there's 7 billion people on this planet, 7 billion. And to put it in perspective, here in the US, I'm sure you've heard of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yes.
Right? He's got 275 million followers. There's 7.7 billion people on the planet. So you know how many billions of people have no clue who that man is?
Of course.
Think about it. So there's people out there that need to hear what you have to say. And right, you can heal people's souls with your stories.
Absolutely. Well, I think you and I love your energy, Robert. You brought a nice time to the listeners today and to myself. So for people that are interested and they want to learn more about, when things open up, or even virtual speaking, or any other things that you do in reference to some of the programs that you talked about, where can people reach you? Website and social, those types of things.
Yes, you can reach me on my website, robertbfoster.com/speaker. And then all of my social links are there on that site as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. So what am I learning? Okay. What am I taking away? Don't ever not listen to what you have internally. And I think of myself as a little girl growing up in Trinidad, and what was my uniqueness. And at that time, my friends would say, nobody's going to listen to you. You're 11. I go, yeah. I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And I went on and, created went to school and did all that stuff to do the kind of work that I do. And I've been giving back for a long time. And, I feel privileged that I listened. I listened to something that I thought I could be good at, not knowing that if I would get paid for it. Really, that was the last thing on my mind. Yep. So for everyone, just listen to that deep space. We all have it. That space within you that we're so busy that we kind of get disconnected from. And we think, oh yeah, well, I don't have that thing that I can be good at. Listen, spend time in nature, clear your mind, write, get things out, and it will eventually come to you. For anyone that's wanting to learn more about authentic relationships, I've just launched a new course on how to authentically connect at home, especially at this time with the pandemic. We all need the skills that much more. So it's a 4-week live coaching and training course, and that will be starting soon. So if you're interested, please reach out to roxannederhodge.com.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhodge.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.